Hi and welcome back. Today I'm talking about Lyon. This is going to be the second video in a three-part video series where I go over slow travel in a specific city, and today we're going to talk about Lyon. In my last video, I went over my first impressions and gave you some ideas of how to get around and how to get to Lyon and some of the average costs and things like that for groceries and whatnot. Today I'm going to talk about what to do if you come to Lyon, some things to eat, and some possible day trips for the area. So whether you're just coming to Lyon for a couple of days, or you're slow traveling like I am, or planning on staying for a few months, this video will give you some ideas and help you make the most of your stay here. If you're new here, my name is Kyria, and over the past 25 years, I've been to almost 60 countries. And I recently quit my job and am traveling full-time. One of my favorite things to do is talk about travel and learn about travel from other people, so let's get started. As I mentioned in my past video, Lyon is laid out in arrondissements, kind of like Paris. They don't seem to make a lot of sense though. The ones in Paris go in kind of a snail shape. The ones in Lyon are kind of willy-nilly. So I'm going to lay out the map right now over the screen and walk you through again real quickly what the arrondissements look like. So as you can see, the first and second arrondissement are in the middle, which is on the Presqu'île, which is like a peninsula area. And then the other arrondissements are kind of spread out around that. So the most popular places to go if you're staying only for a couple of days are going to be the first and second, and then the fifth arrondissement, which is where the old town is. Because of this, I'll start with the attractions in those areas. But if you're planning on staying longer, stick around because I have some places in the outlying areas that are very fun too. The most popular area and attraction to visit is the Vieux Lyon area. It was built between the 11th and 15th century, and it's one of the largest Renaissance districts in Europe, and has Italian-style courtyards, colorful facades, and narrow medieval streets. It was once home to wealthy silk merchants and traders, but it fell into disrepair and was actually restored in the 1960s. Making it France's first protected historic district. When you come, you'll want to just wander around the old town because there's lots of fun little buildings and courtyards and cobblestone streets and things like that. However, I do recommend before you start, you'll definitely need some sustenance. So I recommend the Boulangerie St. Paul, which is near the St. Paul metro station. I had a chocolate croissant there and it was delicious. Next up, you'll definitely want to go and see the Traboules, which are passageways in between the buildings. They were originally built to help the silk workers move fabrics between buildings without getting wet, and many date back to the Renaissance. They also played a crucial role during World War II in helping the French resistance fighters evade the Nazi patrols. Some of them are open to the public, and you can usually tell which ones those are by looking for a plaque on the door. You can also find ones that don't have a plaque, and oftentimes you just have to try the door and see if it's unlocked. And if it is, feel free to go on in, just make sure that you're quiet because people do still live in the areas. Next, you'll want to wander over to the Place Saint-Jean and the cathedral there. This place has a lot of historic buildings and cafes. The cathedral is a Gothic Romanesque masterpiece and was built between the 12th and the 15th centuries. It's famous for its astronomical clock, which if you go into the church and back, it's on the left-hand back corner, and it dates back to the 14th century and it still functions today. You can hear it ring at noon. This cathedral was built on the ruins of a 6th century church, and if you walk around the church, you can actually still see some of those ruins today. From where you'll be if you're at the Place Saint-Jean, you'll be very close to the Vieux Lyon funicular stop. So the next thing you should do is go up to the Basillica de Notre de Fourvière. You can walk up there as well. So if you take the funicular, it is €2 and you get on in the Vieux Lyon stop and it will take you up the hill. You can pay using your tap to pay with your card, or you can buy tickets at the station. If you don't want to take the funicular, or I recommend if you can, you should walk. And to walk up, you need to find there's a set of stairs kind of in the middle of an alley. In the old town, you'll walk up the stairs and you'll see a street, which you'll have to go to the left at the top of the stairs. And then there's a little bit of a passageway that leads to a ramp that leads up to the top of the hill. The Basilica de Notre de Fourvière was built after the Franco-Prussian War as a symbol of gratitude to the Virgin Mary. And it's an interesting blend of Byzantine, Gothic, and Romanesque styles. There's also a crypt below, and you can go into both the basilica itself and the crypt for free, or you can wander around the outside for free as well. While you're up at the top of the hill, you should also visit the Roman ruins of Lugdunum. which was once the capital of Gaul. The antique theater there was built in 15 BC and would host up to 10,000 spectators for things like plays and gladiator contests. And it's actually still a functional theater today. Right next to the ruins, there's an archaeological museum, which costs €7 to get into. However, wandering around the Roman ruins is free. And even if you're not into religion or ruins or churches, it's worth going up to the top of the hill just for the view. You can see the city of Lyon, the river, and also the Cathedral Saint-Jean from the top of the hill. And it's said that on a very clear day, you can actually even see Mont Blanc. However, when I was there, it wasn't very clear. And Lyon actually is apparently kind of a smoggy city in general. So it's very few and far between that you actually can see the mountains from the view. Once you're done wandering around, you should go back down the hill and cross over the Saône into the first and second arrondissement. The first thing you should check out is the Fresque de Lyonnaise. You can't miss it. It's huge, it's yellow, and it's covered with a bunch of people on different levels. What that is it's 30 historic figures from Lyon's history, including the Lumiere brothers and Paul Bocuse. It's very realistic. It actually looks like an apartment building with people hanging out on the balconies, and it's definitely worth checking out. From there, you can walk easily to the Place de Terreaux, which is a huge square and was once part of the city's medieval fortifications before being transformed into a public space in the 17th century. During the French Revolution, people were actually executed in the square by guillotine. Today, it is home to the Hôtel de Ville and the Muséum des Beaux-Arts, as well as a huge fountain in the middle called the Bartholdi Fountain, which was created by the sculptor who created the Statue of Liberty. The Hôtel de Ville is the big building that's on one end, and that is the City Hall. It was built in the 17th century, and it has survived fires, revolts, and renovations over the years. On the other side of the square is the Muséum des Beaux-Arts, which is a museum of fine arts. You can go into the courtyard of the museum for free and just wander around. It's very pretty. Apparently a lot of people take Instagram photos there. But then the museum itself is only €8 and is housed in a former abbey, which is really beautiful. It has collections from ancient Egypt as well as a lot of modern art by artists such as Rembrandt, Monet, and Picasso. Once you're done checking out the Museum of Beaux-Arts, you can walk straight down the Avenue de la République. This is a huge shopping and walking street. It's very, very wide. It's pedestrian only, and it has tons of different stores. I mean, you'll find Uniqlo, you'll find Fnac, which is an electronics store. You'll also find the high-end ones like Lacoste and Rolex and Bang & Olufsen and things like that. So you can just wander down that and try not to spend too much money. And also on the way, you'll pass the Hôtel Dieu, which is worth popping in. There's a courtyard there that's very pretty. And it also has a big mall and a bathroom. So if you need to use the bathroom, that's a great place to stop. It does cost 50 cents. As you continue down, you'll end up in the Place Bellecour, which is one of the largest squares in Europe. It was once a military parade ground, but later on became a place for festivals and things like that. In the middle is a statue of Louis XIV, and from the square you can look up to the hill and see the Basilica of Notre de Fourvière. At this point, you've probably done a lot of walking, so it's a perfect time to stop for lunch. From the Place Bellecour, you can get to the Rue de Marronnier, which is a street that has a ton of different restaurants and is a great place for lunch. As I've mentioned in the past, in France, a lot of the time, your lunch is a couple of different courses. So the best time to go is usually between noon and 2 o'clock. And you can get 2 or 3 courses for around €20. So that's kind of the core area where you can get around if you don't want to walk too long or you don't have as much time in the city. However, there are several other places that are a little bit farther out that are completely worth seeing if you have more time. One of them is the Confluence, which is where the 2 rivers come together, the Rhône and the Saône. So that's all the way down on the southern part of the Presqu'île or the peninsula. And you can get there taking a light rail tram. Another place that I think is well worth visiting is Les Halles, which is the famous food market on the east side of the Rhône. This is over by the main train station where you would come in if you come into the city from Paris or anywhere else. But from the Place Bellecour, it's only about a 15-minute walk, so it's well worth walking over there. It was named after the legendary chef Paul Bocuse, and in it you'll find a lot of gourmet food such as pastries, cheeses, and seafood, as well as places to have lunch. And while you're there, don't forget to try the famous tarte aux pralines, which is a strange-looking pink tart, but is worth trying out. Also, as I said in my last video, one of my favorite places to wander around is the Croix Rousse neighborhood. From the Place de Terreaux, you can walk, and I suggest walking if you can. If you can't walk, you can take a metro. There is a metro stop in the Croix Rousse neighborhood. But if you can walk, there's a set of stairs that goes from the Place de Terreaux up the hill, all the way up to the Croix Rousse neighborhood. And I highly recommend it because it's a very eclectic neighborhood. There's lots of artwork and murals and little restaurants and bookstores and shops and people just hanging out outside, enjoying the day. Plus, you'll have a view as you're walking up, and it's just a really nice walk. So if you can do that, I recommend that. It's well worth the walk. Also, like I said, there's tons of cafes and coffee shops and places where you can play games and whatnot. So it's a great kind of place where you can walk along and stop along the way very easily. Also, if you're just walking around the city near either of the rivers, oftentimes you'll see the Croix Rousse neighborhood because it's a big hill. You can just find a set of stairs and walk up it, and that's one of my favorite things to do is just find a hidden set of stairs and walk up it, and in the end you end up at the Croix Rousse. The other thing to go see in the Croix Rousse when you're there is the Mural de Canut. This is one of the largest murals in Europe, and it depicts the silk workers' history and lives. The interesting thing is they actually change it every so often, and so the people are growing up. So they show them young 20 years ago, and then they repainted it so the people now are 20 years older. So that's kind of fun. The other thing that's worth seeing in the Croix Rousse is there are more Traboules. So these ones go north to south, whereas the ones in the Old Town go east to west. But kind of the same thing as before, you'll see a little sign on the doorway that denotes that you can pass through there. So just look for the little sign with an arrow, and you'll be able to pass through and see the Traboules in that area. In addition, the main street of the Croix Rousse has a huge Saturday market, and that market is actually there on other days as well. I can't remember exactly what the days are, but Saturday is the big shopping day, and it's really fun just to wander around, get yourself a baguette, some fresh fruit, some cheese. They have different foods from different cultures, like there are halal foods and things like that too. So it's really fun just to wander around and hopefully buy something. And if you're headed across town and you don't want to go up and over the hill, there's a tunnel that goes underneath the Croix Rousse that you can take on a bike or on foot if you'd like. If you're into walking and wandering, Lyon is a great place for that. You can walk along either the Saône or the Rhône. On both sides, there are walking and biking lanes. And you can also go to the Botanical Garden or the zoo, which are both free. And that area is a big park as well, and you can wander around there. If you're into hiking, you can go a little further out and go to the Bois de Serre, which is a forest with dirt hiking paths. Or you can go up into the Mont d'Or area, where there's a lot of cute little towns and other walking paths through kind of farmland and things. Both of those places you can get to easily on the bus. Pretty much all of the buses and trams and trains in Lyon are €2. So it goes pretty far out. Some cities have zones and it's a little more expensive if you're further out, but in the case of Lyon, it's pretty much €2 everywhere. Okay, let's talk about food. So Lyon is very famous for its food. It has several Michelin star restaurants, and of course it has the famous Paul Bocuse, who is a chef who has trained a lot of the famous chefs of the day. So if you're into Michelin star restaurants, you'll have plenty of choices, but also what you must try is the bouchons. The bouchons started with the silk workers. They needed a way to have lunch really quickly while they were working, and so ladies started making homemade food and giving it or selling it to the silk workers in the Old Town area. These eventually morphed into restaurants, and they serve a lot of very local Lyonnaise food. Some of the ones you'll see very often is the quenelle, which is kind of a puffed up fish souffle, and the salad lyonnaise, which is a salad with bacon and egg on it, as well as several other things like beef cheeks and things like that. One of my favorite dishes was a bone marrow dish at a restaurant called Le Musée, and one of my favorite meals was lunch at a small restaurant inside Les Halles. Last but not least, if you're staying in Lyon for an extended amount of time, there are a lot of places you can go on day trips to. I didn't do this, but you can get to Geneva and Paris and Marseille fairly easily, so you could potentially do a day trip, or not a day trip necessarily, but a couple day trip out of town and still keep your apartment. But where I went was Annecy, which is a small town in the Alps, which is very beautiful and has lots of hiking and skiing and cycling, and has a really nice area with canals and Old Town. And then I also went skiing for the day, which was really fun. But I'll be covering those things in more detail in a different video as well. So there you have a few things that I think you should do if you come to Lyon. And in my next video, I'm going to be going over how much it cost me for 1 month in Lyon, and I'll talk about whether or not I think I could live here or stay for a longer amount of time. So if that sounds like something you like, please subscribe and follow along so you don't miss it. Once again, thanks for watching and happy travels.